Hi guys, good evening. Before we start this workshop, let me just reiterate the themes that I play in my portfolio. Okay, so I basically have three broad themes on which I'm building my portfolio for the next 3, 5, 7 years. Of course, I'm an active investor, and you guys know, okay, right? I chase earnings momentum and I track performance, and I change my portfolio allocation, and I keep churning according to business performance. But I have three broad themes on which I'm playing, right? And on which the workshops are actually built. The first theme is, of course, the consumption and the brands, right? Businesses like Metro Brands, then Sula, then Ethos, right? And also businesses like Titan and all. I don't own Titan, but then again, having said that, they're a big brand. And when brands have higher power of scalability across the country, right? So I need volume growth and value growth both in my business. And I believe if I own a good brand which is scalable in nature and have a low market cap, then they are going to do very well in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Okay, so that's point number one. The second theme that I'm playing is the financials, right? The second financial, when I say financials, I mean both the lenders as well as both the capital market stocks. Like for example, I own Angel One in my portfolio, which is a broking company, a digital broking company, and jiske bare mein I've already made a workshop yesterday. Second is of course I'm very bullish on the mid and small cap NBFCs, because after COVID you see, right, like the microfinance space, the commercial vehicle space, the auto space is coming back up, and NBFCs which are focused on these particular avenues are going to do very well, and they have been already been doing very well. So you must have also seen my workshop on the three NBFCs we have done so far, that is Mass Financials, Arman Financials, and IIFL Finance. So those are the two categories. And the third theme is proxy manufacturing. So basically what is happening is like, after COVID, you see the whole China plus one strategy, you see the PLI scheme in India, right? The whole Make in India theme, right? They are gaining traction. And when I say gaining traction is correct, the best way is to play the manufacturing space in India. I think the last time that this space, of course, I was like too young to like be in the capital markets, but all the stories that I've heard, that between 2008 and 2008 was the last period when the manufacturing boom was there. If you go back and see when the last capital goods cycle, when it was turning in favor of investors, they were like multiple stocks that turned into multi-baggers between 2003 and 2008, right? And I'm not saying like we are going to get similar range of returns in from 2020 or 2023 onwards, but having said that, all the pieces are now in set. So that's why the third main theme which I'm target is proxy manufacturing and cap goods. Now I generally don't, I do own one company which is into the infrastructure space, but I like those manufacturing or the proxy manufacturing companies that can, that can aid, separate sectors. So for example, I'll give you an example of this company called Polycab, which I'm going to be covering in this workshop, right? So Polycab makes cables and wires. Now, cables and wires are required by any player in any core sector, whether it's mining, whether it's railways, whether it's real estate. So playing Polycab gives me the comfort as well, because if I play a real estate player, right, and you understand, right, these are plays where like the ROE numbers are always low, right, and they always have to depend on payments, like bulk payments, receivables will always be high, there will be cash flow issues. So I know I might make a lot of money playing a direct real estate company, or let's say a direct mining company, but also having said that, jab cycle ghumta hai to it can ruin a lot of my capital as well. So on that note, I like to play all this proxy plays in the manufacturing space. ताकि अगर आप देखोगे, so there is this company called Usha Martin जो ऐसे steel wires बनाते हैं, elevator wires बनाते हैं, bridge का wire बनाते हैं, right? So across the space you need it. There is this company called Pix Industries जो ऐसे इंडस्ट्रियल बेल्ट्स बनाते हैं. जैसे आप देखोगे कि कोई अगर ऑटो सेक्टर में भी जो ट्रैक्टर के में भी जो बेल्ट लगता है वो पिक्स बनाता है, या फिर अगर आप देखोगे कि लाइक से फॉर एग्जांपल बेल्ट्स, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल जो पुलिस में होते हैं ना, टू लिफ्ट हेवी वेट्स अक्रॉस इंडस्ट्रीज, ये तो लगता ही है, राइट? सो पिक्स हो गया, उषा हो गया, एंड देन यू हैव बिजनेसेस लाइक पॉलीकैब इंडिया, राइट? सो there are companies like Focus Lighting, जो आज भी हम कवर करेंगे in this workshop, right? जो ऐसे lighting solutions देते हैं, right? Lighting solutions देते हैं across the infra space, the railway space, the interior, मतलब घर के अंदर, as well as exterior, मतलब outdoor lighting as well as retail lighting as well. तो if you are playing this space, तो अगर manufacturing sector में अगले 3-5 साल में सही से अच्छा मतलब एक boom आता है, so then all these proxy plays are going to do very well. So, and of course, one more thing you would also understand why I'm targeting this proxy plays instead of the direct manufacturing plays is, आप देखोगे these companies have better balance sheets, these companies have better ROEs, and they have better financial statements as well, right? Because अगर आप देखोगे, if you look at a direct infrastructure company or if you look at a direct real estate company, उनका ROE number कम होता है, cash flow from operations are very uneven year on year. But if you look at this proxy plays, their ROE numbers are on the higher side. Why? Because they cater to various sectors. So on that note, today we are going to start with the first workshop that involves the proxy manufacturing space. मतलब आप इसको manufacturing भी बोलो या proxy manufacturing भी बोलो. So we have already covered a couple of workshops both in the financial space. अगर आप देखोगे, एक तो capital markets related था, Angel One, CAMS and CDSL, and the second was in the financial space itself, जहाँ पे we targeted 3 NBFC companies. Now we move on to one, and I believe like since we are covering like 3 different themes, we're going to mix and match, not do all the NBFCs together, then you might also get bored, right? So we're going to do this proxy manufacturing workshop. Next, I'm going to be coming out with probably 3 companies in the consumption and the brand space. Maybe हम वो Metro or Sula Vector का लेके कर सकते हैं, right? So we'll mix and match so that आपका interest भी बने रहे यहाँ पे. So on that note, let me just share the screen here. Okay, so I probably will also have to open screener because I need the quarterly data. Okay, so today we are in this whole manufacturing space and we are going to cover 3 companies. Let me just yeah, so it's Polycab, Pricol, and Focus Lighting. So these are the 3 companies. We'll again discuss the business model. We'll discuss how these companies make money, right? And we'll talk about the revenue mix. We'll talk about the Q4 results. We'll talk about the management outlook and the commentary from the con call, right? And that's all we're going to do here, like ekdam end to end. And of course, we'll be ending each company by looking at the 3 financial statements: income statement, balance sheet, and of course, the most important one to us, which is cash flow statement. Okay, like how does the flow of cash taking place? Like cash flow from operations kaise बढ़ रहा है, and then CFI, and then CFF, and then see the net cash at the end of the day. And of course, calculate return on equity, which is probably the most important ratio in when you're analyzing a business. So we'll start with Polycab India. Okay, so Polycab India has mainly 2 divisions. Okay, one is of course, you can pause the video and you can read. Again, it's more of a notes kind of a thing that I do, right? And of course, don't focus too much on presentation and all that. My focus is only on the content. और यहाँ पे हम पैसे बनाने के लिए stock market में आए हैं, presentation बनाने के लिए नहीं. So please do understand that. So cables and wires, right? Cables and wires. I guess everybody knows the importance of cables and wires across sectors, and they contribute 90% of the revenue. And there is another segment which is called FMEG, right? Fast moving electrical goods, right? जहाँ पे क्या क्या होता है? Fans होते हैं, lights होते हैं, and there are switchboards, correct? So Polycab has these 2 divisions, but again, if you see, cables and wires contribute 90% of their revenue, right? Now, here is the thing, right? If you look at this, if you look at between also cable and wire, there is a 60 and 40 ratio, right? Now, if you see 60 and 40 ratio में, अगर आप देखोगे यहाँ पे कि wires is 40% and cables are 60%, right? But wires बेच के Polycab makes a higher margin. So this is the product mix that I'm trying to tell you. A year back, so I'll tell you this. Okay, ठंडे दिमाग से सोचिए. When do you think a company has operating leverage? When do you think a company का profit after tax grows at a faster pace than sales का growth? When they have operating leverage, correct? Now leverage तब आता है when the product mix works in your favor. So that means 1 year back, that means back to FY22 में अगर हम जाते हैं, cables was 70% and wires was 30% of the entire revenue. Okay, but wires sell करके Polycab makes a higher margin than cables. Now, if you see in the last fiscal, Polycab has been able to increase profit after tax at a faster pace than sales. Why? Because their wire ka contribution to their total sales have gone up to 60-40. And going forward, when the management was asked about the same question, they said that the number is going to be 50-50 probably in 2025 or 2026. So that means ke kya? Polycab is focusing more on the wire segment than on the cable segment. Why? Because wires have higher margin than cables. So always remember this part. Second is like, for example, अगर आप देखोगे where do you use cables and where do you use wires? So cables are most likely used in places जहाँ पे there are infrastructure projects, telecom, right? You would see those cables like, say, for example, वो जो 5G केबल 4G केबल्स वगैरह होता है, तो वहां पे केबल्स लगता है, राइट? Where do you think wires are mostly used? Wires are mostly used in the real estate, sector. जब कोई मतलब, I mean, the building that you are in, the society that you are in, I mean, I can tell you that there are so many different kinds of wires that is required. So in a way, Polycab is a great proxy play to the real estate sector as well. I mean, many people come up to me and ask me, like, why aren't we playing the real estate sector? Because now going forward, when the rate cuts are going to happen, again, there will be a gush of money. And again, the cost of borrowing for real estate players will come down. And of course, in the last 3 years, you see that there is a boom in the real estate sector in this country, especially in the premium to the luxury segment, right? But having said that, अगर हम डायरेक्टली रियल एस्टेट ना खेल के, if you are also playing through Polycab, which is the wire part, then we are also playing real estate, right? Indirectly. So this is the proxy manufacturing game that I'm trying to tell you, right? And cables are mostly used for the infrastructure space. Okay, so this is what they are saying, target 50-50 by FY26. Okay, and now again, Polycab is both a B2B and a B2C, right? So B2B में क्या होता है? Business to business. That means you are selling your product to another business which is selling to its customers, correct? The end consumers. B2C is business to consumer. You are selling it directly to the consumers. Got it? So now if you see, so generally wires and the FMEG products, मतलब fan हो गया, light हो गया, switchboard हो गया, these are the B2C products, right? But when you look at B2B products, it's cables, right? So generally, as I tell you, right, you won't be able to sell cable directly to a consumer, but you can sell it to, let's say, for example, I don't know, some telecom infrastructure company. Got it? So that is why, since wire is linked to B2C, wire has higher margins, right? And cable is linked to B2B, cable has lower margin. I hope you're getting the point here. And since the wire ka percentage of the total revenue to cable is going up slowly from 30-70 to 40-60 to 50-50, that is why you see operating leverage in Polycab. If you have understood this, you will understand how, because if you see an company exhibiting operating leverage, there has to be some kind of a product mix change. Like again, I go back to that Sting wala example, right? जब से वो Sting wala drink आया है, पूरा Pepsi का पूरा portfolio में, and Sting contributes from 0 to 10% का जब contribution हुआ, तब you can see कि like Varun Beverages have started to exhibit operating leverage. And operating leverage is critical because then your EPS grows at a faster pace than top line ka growth. Got it? Okay. Now let's understand what has been happening in Polycab in the last 1 year. So double-digit volume growth in the cable and wire segment, right? So we need two things to grow, right? We need volume and we need value, right? दोनों को मिलाओगे तो then you get top line का growth. So in India is more a country where you want volume growth to come, and volume growth comes with increasing distribution, right? So Polycab ने अपना distribution को बहुत अच्छे से बढ़ाया. So of course I will show you the number in which the distributions have gone up. But for the time being, you understand like there is a double-digit volume growth. Immense beneficiary from the recovery of the capex cycle. Of course, you understand, right? With the recovery of the railway, because you see today, right? The government ने जितना capex में पैसा डाल रहा है, right? In railways, in infra, in road construction, right? I mean, all these EPC contracts, right? इनका order book आप देखिए, right? अगर आप देखोगे कोई भी EPC companies, like we will cover 3 EPC companies in Ahluwalia, HG Infra, and PSP contract, you will get to see what I'm trying to tell you. इनका order book एकदम all time high में है. Ion Exchange जैसा कंपनी जो वाटर रिसाइकलिंग का काम करते हैं for all this EPC companies, तो इनका भी देखोगे Ion Exchange का भी order book has gone up multiple. So this is the thing. Now distribution strength has gone up by 25% in FY23. So that means what? Volume growth India में आता है when you are expanding distribution. So I hope you are getting the point here. Second is what Polycab has done is they have merged two divisions, LDC and HDC. So इससे क्या हुआ? They can now focus more on both the divisions इकट्ठा, right? So volume growth आया है by increasing distribution. अगर distribution नहीं बढ़ाता तो I don't think Polycab would have had a double-digit volume growth in the cable and wire division. Okay, so what is the economic moat of Polycab? Now understand this, right? Economic moat means Polycab is doing something which, let's say, the other competitors cannot do, right? So the difference is like the Polycab is a one-stop shop solution. So the management was asked about this question, like, what is it that makes you different from the other cable and wire company? They say like there are 50-60 kind of wires and cables that is required. Say for example, when you're constructing a building, cables एक type का नहीं होता. There are multiple kinds of cables and wires. I mean, of course, you can Google and figure them out. The thing is, Polycab makes all the varieties, unlike the other companies. So what the Polycab management says is, say for example, if say there is a builder which comes to Polycab, he would want all kinds of wires, right? Ikhatta from one source, correct? Rather than go to 3, 4, 5, 6 players and collect different materials, right? That is like, मतलब क्या होगा? उससे उनका ही business का working capital will go up. उनका ही मतलब problems आएगा delivery में of the project. So that is why Polycab is one of the very few companies in this country जिनके पास हर type का, like it has got every kind of wires and cables with them, right? And they have also mentioned the 50 and 60 kinds of cables. So volume growth comes with increase in distribution channel, right? There is a bit of pricing pressure. So pricing pressure मतलब क्या कि ये जो वायर और ये जो केबल बनते हैं, इनका मेन रॉ मटेरियल क्या होता है? The main raw material is aluminum, correct? Or the main raw material is copper. So if you see that copper and aluminum prices have gone up, right, in the last 2.5 years, although they have been mild, right? I mean, commodity prices have gone down since 2022. But also having said that, since Polycab is a B2C play as well, they have a bargaining power. Plus, they have a brand of its own, right? Polycab, I guess everybody understands and knows the brand, right? And on top of which, if they are, and that's why, like, if, say, for example, if they are focusing more on the wire segment, so mota moti, matlab Polycab ka pura ye jo raw material prices ka jo pressure hai, they can able to manage it. Yeah, so this is the expansion in distribution reach. Can you see the dealers and distributors? So increase over FY18, okay, versus FY22. Retail outlets have gone up by 433% and dealers and distributors have gone up by 140%. Now you understand how Polycab has been able to drive double-digit volume growth. So now you do understand Polycab is like a proxy FMCG as well. Say for example, like a Britannia kind of a company. So आज Britannia ने अगर पूरे country में अपना distribution नहीं फैला था, so they wouldn't have become a 1.2 lakh crore market cap वाला company, correct? So the more you distribute, the more you are around your customers, right? The more is the probability that your products will be bought by them. Okay, so Polycab is a company that doesn't give any quarterly or any yearly outlook, but they have given a target of 20,000 crore ka top line in FY26. Now, this is the game, right? So Polycab went into this Project Leap. So Project Leap was a project that they started at the beginning of FY22 to make the company, just like they added 2 divisions, right? They added 2 divisions so that they can focus more on, the dealer and distributorship. So what they did in this project was like, there were so many cities where Polycab did not have a good presence, right? So Polycab ensured that they did the penetration correctly. There were so many dealers and distributors who were inactive. Polycab ने उनको active करवाया. There were so many dealers and distributors जो let's say for example पहले उनका business better हुआ करता था, अभी उतना अच्छा नहीं है. Polycab ने क्या किया? उनको even थोड़ा बहुत financial support भी दिया. So these are things which are part of Project Leap, where Polycab made itself into a leaner and a meaner machine. Plus, they increase their distribution and in double digits, leading to double-digit volume growth. Now, what they're targeting is this, right? They are targeting a top line, that means sales of 20,000 crore by FY26. Now, what was their top line in FY23? 14,000 crore. In FY22, the top line was 12,200 crore. That means kya? That means from 14,000 crore to 20,000 crore in 3 years. If they are able to do this, then the top line growth will be around 13 to 14% CAGR. Okay, we should do the math in this way, correct? So 14,000 crore से 20,000 करना है तो 6,000 crore add होगा, 6,000 crore in let's say 3 years. तो अगले 2 साल में 2,000 crore का तो addition होनी चाहिए to top line, right? So over this 14,000. So इसका क्या मतलब? और अगर पॉलीकैब ने अपना वायर वाला डिवीजन का परसेंटेज बढ़ा दिया to 50-50 कर दिया, तो पॉलीकैब को पक्का पॉलीकैब will get operating leverage. Got it? So अगर the top line grows by 14% and if the wire to cable ratio becomes 50-50 from the current 40-60 levels, then I'm pretty sure Polycab is going to get operating leverage and the PAT growth can be in the range of 20 to 25%. So this is what I'm expecting of this stock, right? So 20 to 25% means my money will double in Polycab in the next 3 to 4 years. And of course, in the worst case situation, 5 साल में double होगा, right? Provided Polycab reaches the target of 20,000 crore by FY26. Okay, so now you also see here Polycab. If you look at the numbers here, sales, can you see this? The profit after tax grew up at a much faster pace than top line on a YOY basis. Top line grew 10%, but PAT grew 31%. And even on a quarter-on-quarter basis, see, both grew 16%. Means the company has operating leverage, right? And you know why, right? Because the wires are now contributing more to the top line than cables. Okay, so now I'll just take a photo here because I have to show you the financials, because I can't come back to this slide again and again. These are basically the notes that I made when I checked the financials for the first time. So very simple. How you can also go is go to Polycab India on screener, go to go to quarters, and here under March 2023 you get the results. Now let's see, let's understand the observations. First is, of course, you get to check the income statement. Yeah, so can you see Polycab का top line का growth है both on quarter as well as YOY, and of course the bottom line का growth है on a YOY as well as on a QOQ. Important things to check again is के like the other income to total sales, and other income is a very small percentage to total sales, so there's nothing to worry. Second is के like of course employee benefit expense देखना है, and can you see employee benefit expense has gone up both QOQ and YOY. That means the company is not exploiting its employees. That's also a good thing. And of course, you look at other expenses, and other expenses have also gone up in alignment, almost in alignment with what the top line is growing. So that is fine. So there's nothing wrong with the income statement. Now we directly move on to the cash flow statement and see how the company has been doing, right? Because we need to understand how if you understand the cash flow statement, you will understand how the company is running its operations, whether through its internal accruals और क्या बाहर से पैसा उठा के धंधा कर रहा है, right? बाहर से पैसा उठा के मतलब whether they are taking debt or let's say they are diluting equity, right? So first is we understand के like, okay, so first is this is FY22 and FY23. First is, can you see profit before tax has gone up by a large margin, right? From, I mean, this is in millions. So from 1100 crores to 1707 crores. So that means what? On a YOY basis, they have done fantastically well. Of course, you add depreciation and then operating profit before working capital has also gone up. The number we need is should be going up, right? And now comes the working capital changes. So here are some of the observations here. First is, oh, sorry. Yeah. So first is you see that there is a lot of changes in inventory. The inventory change has gone up a lot from 220 crore in FY22 to 751 crore ka increase in inventory. Now, when does increase in inventory happen? Increase in inventory can happen in two cases. A, when let's say, for example, you have already invested a lot, because out of this much money, Polycab has invested this money in inventory. That's how you should be reading it, right? So out of 19,000 million, they have invested an extra 7,500 million in inventory. That's an increase over the last year. Got it? And the increase has been higher over FY22. Now, why is this so? Because there are two ways of looking at inventory. A is like, if I see that the inventory number is going up and the sales number are coming down, that means the company has difficulty in selling its old inventory. That's a bad thing. But if your sales are going up and your inventory number is going up at that pace or even at a faster pace, that means you are investing more in inventory. Inventory means what? You have to buy raw materials, copper, aluminium, then you have to make the wire, I mean, that is like, you have to buy raw materials, then work in progress, and then of course, finished goods, where let's say you have to give it to the dealers and distributors and they have to sell it to the customers, correct? So if your inventory number is going up along with an increase in sales and in bottom line, that means it's good. That means the company is anticipating higher demands in the future. उसीलिए तो inventory में ज़्यादा पैसा लगा के रखा है, right? Or else think about this: if going forward in the next fiscal, if there is even more demand for Polycab products, but the company hasn't invested in inventory, then they would have nothing to sell. Then some competitor would come in, and then that competitor is going to sell its inventory and would capture market share from Polycab. So then the Polycab stock will fall and everybody will start crying. So this is how it works. But then it's a very, there is no hard and fast rule here. Many a times, I'll give you the example of this company called Page Industries. Page Industries invested a lot of money from its operating profits in inventory after Q3, but then they could not sell that inventory in Q4. As a result of which their cash flows got affected, the stock got affected, the ROE got affected. But on the other hand, Polycab का inventory में invest करना is completely different to Page Industries का inventory में invest करना. I hope you're getting the difference here, because Polycab is anticipating demand in the future. उसके लिए अब यही तो खेल है in the stock market. Now let's say, for example, future में there is a problem in demand and the inventory cannot be liquidated, then Polycab will also fall in trouble, right? Like any other company in the world, right? And this is why we need to track businesses and see where the income statement, cash flow statements are headed, rather than making a full-fledged opinion, because they are doing business on a day-to-day basis and the world is very, very dynamic, right? So you have to look at it that aspect. Okay, so here Observe one more thing here. What is the fixed capital investment? It's only 477 crores, correct? But the working capital investment, especially in inventory, is a higher number. So that means what? As I told you, right? Polycab is in the business of expanding distribution. Now, when you're expanding distribution, तो जो नया dealer or distributor होगा, उसको तो all you have to do is you have to build products in inventory and give it to them so that they can sell. Polycab doesn't have to build 2, 3, 4 extra plants. Got it? So Polycab is a business जहाँ पे आप बोल सकते हो, like if I tell you now, how do you interpret this cash flow statement? So before working capital investments, so a company जब एक मतलब say for example जब cash flows बनाता है, ठीक है? Cash flows को वो दो जगह में invest करते हैं, working capital and fixed capital. Polycab is a company which are investing more in working capital than in fixed capital, right? Because you see that the changes in inventory is a bigger number than the change in plant property and equipment. Okay, so ये हो गया. बाकी अगर हम देखेंगे तो हाँ, सो बेसिकली दूसरा चीज हम बैलेंस शीट में जाके एक चीज देख सकते हैं. बैलेंस शीट में यही है कि लुक एट द इक्विटी बेस फ्रॉम 55 to 66 हुआ है. इसका क्या मतलब? द बुक वैल्यू ऑफ द कंपनी हैज गॉन अप बाय 20% ऑन अ YOY basis in FY23. Okay, and now the most important number that we have to check. The most important, okay, one more thing, if I just come and finish off these things. तो CFO से आपने CFI हटाया और वर्किंग कैपिटल हटाया. यहाँ पे इन कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम ऑपरेशंस एंड इन कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम इन फाइनेंसिंग, कैन यू सी पेमेंट्स ऑफ डिविडेंड? Polycab has also increased the dividends that they have given to the shareholders, right? FY22 mein they gave around 150 crore and they have increased dividends by over 35% to 209 crore. So that means what am I trying to tell you here? चलो बैलेंस शीट में जाने से पहले एक बार फाइनली समझ लेते हैं कि कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट क्या बोल रहा है. सो पूरे साल का बिजनेस करने के बाद पॉलीकैब के पास कैश फ्लो, कैश आया था बिफोर वर्किंग कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट कितना? 19,000 रुपए. लेट्स फॉरगेट मिलियंस एंड करोड्स एंड लैक्स एंड ऑल दैट टू अवॉइड कंफ्यूजन. 19,000 रुपए आया था, 19,000 रुपीज. आउट ऑफ 19,000 रुपीज उन्होंने कितना अपने इन्वेंटरी में डाला? अपने इन्वेंटरी में डाला ओवरऑल आप देखोगे कुछ अप्रोक्सीमेटली डाला कुछ 4-5 हजार करोड़ का. तो नेट कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटी आफ्टर स्पेंडिंग मनी इन इन्वेंटरी इज अराउंड 14,000 करोड़. अब 14,000 करोड़ में, चलो 14,000 रुपीस में उन्होंने और 4,700 रुपीस यूज किया इन प्लान प्रॉपर्टी इक्विपमेंट में, ठीक है? तो बचता कितना है? अप्रोक्सीमेटली 10,000 करोड़. अब वो 10,000 करोड़ में उन्होंने क्या किया? और अराउंड 200 करोड़ 2,000 करोड़ उन्होंने इन्वेस्ट किया, मतलब डिविडेंड्स दिया शेयर होल्डर को. बाकी रख लिया अपने पास कैश फॉर द नेक्स्ट ईयर, राइट? ऑफ कोर्स देयर आर अदर लाइन आइटम्स, बट I am trying to tell you okay, what are the most critical things that you have to check when you open a cash flow statement. Because see, you have to analyze millions of businesses to figure out opportunities. You can't spend days and months looking at a cash flow statement and see look at Excel sheet. तो इस तरीके से आप देखोगे CFO, CFI and CFF. और अगर एक चीज, one thing I can tell you is Polycab is a business जो अपने internal cash accrual से ही अपना working capital investment, fixed capital investment and dividends तीनों दे पाया, correct? So that becomes the other thing. Matlab, these are the kind of things that we want, right? We want a company to grow with internal accruals than, let's say, for example, taking debt. Although taking debt is not always a bad thing if the company can use it wisely. Okay, then we look at the ROE number, which is very, very critical. ROE is net income by equity. We all understand what the equity number is. Equity is this 66,685, and you see the net income number. Net income number आपको आ जाएगा from the income statement, which is the profit after tax यहाँ पे. Okay, so which is 128 something. So if you divide the net income divided by equity, Polycab ka ROE number comes out to be around 20% in FY23, but whereas the number was 16% in FY22. So that means what? That means अगर मैं इस sheet में अभी वापस जाऊँ, now you will understand that we have covered the income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. So at the end of the day, I can tell you the book value has gone up by 20% and the ROE has improved from FY22 to FY23. And the company has made a lot of investments in working capital over fixed capital. So this is basically nothing but the notes for your future reference.